Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tour Pro Talks. I'm Genevieve White, copywriter and coach, and I work with tourism professionals to craft confident copy, help you grow your audience, and of course, make more money. And today I'm joined by Daniela Robinson, who's the founder of Let's Go Blabla. And Daniela helps tourism professionals to learn German and use their German skills to enhance the experiences of their visitors. So welcome today, Daniela. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's lovely to have you here and to talk with you about learning German. So, oh yeah, before we get started, I've got lots of questions to ask Daniela, and I know she's got loads of things to say. But do please, we try to make these broadcasts. Sorry, I've actually been out in the sun today, so I think I've got a lot of sunstroke. Please bear with me. Yeah, we try to make these broadcasts as interactive as possible. So please do say hello and where you're from, and don't forget to, feel free to ask any questions you've got for Daniela. Okay, so my first question for you today, Daniela, is a very simple one. Why should tour professionals learn German?
Well, Germans like to travel, as you know, and statistics show. So Germans do like to go abroad, and so they're a large tourism group in many countries. So it is certainly useful to speak to them in their own language if you can. And it's a very useful language to have if you are working in tourism, certainly in Europe. I know that from my own experience as well. Speaking German opens a lot of doors and gets you a lot of jobs. And it's just to create more personalized experiences, because there are not that many offers out there in German. So if you can appeal to these people, that would be great. And another reason is if you ever take families on tour, if you want to speak to the children of the family, you probably won't get very far if you speak English. So that's one of the main reasons I give to people to learn German, is you can appeal to the whole family and not just the parents who might speak some English.
Yeah, that is a really good reason for sure, being able to, if you've got things lined up for families, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the statistics about the amount of German people who travel abroad, they're quite staggering.
Yes.
They really are huge travelers, the Germans, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're I can't remember the exact numbers now, but I think about 30% of holiday trips are abroad, whereas the French generally, I live in France, so the French generally stay in France, whereas the Germans really do like to go abroad to other countries, and they also stay there for a while. So there's, it's not just a short trip, it's generally a week or more. So and it just there's somebody was joking about that, and no matter where you go in the world, you'll always meet a German somewhere. And in my experience, that's actually true. I've met Germans everywhere in the world while I was traveling.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been my experience as well. And I mean, yeah, I've looked at statistics as well in preparing for our chat today, and I'm absolutely terrible with remembering statistics. I don't remember anything, but yeah, it's huge. And also, like you, just from my own experience, there's loads of German people come to Shetland as well. And I'm not totally sure how well many of the tour professionals here speak German. So, it could be that your services are valuable in many places.
And they're also big spenders now. It used to be a bit different, but they're now, I think, the biggest spenders in Europe on holidays. So it's not just that they go places, it's also they're spending their money. So that is very interesting.
Yeah, I read that too. I think one of the things that would be interesting to talk about today is people's perceptions of Germans. And there's so many stereotypes associated with German people, aren't there? And I don't know, I know you're German, so maybe you could help us. Yeah, you could talk to us about some of these stereotypes. Speaking personally, I know when I was 10, my first impression of German people was my mum and dad saying, quick, we've got to quickly get to the pool and get to the loungers before the Germans get the loungers, because they'll be there. And that was my first introduction to German people.
that's the classic. That's the classic stereotype, and it's of course there's a basis to it, but it's also important to note that Germans are very aware of the stereotype, and there's actually jokes being made about this. And I think there's famous tour operators, and they use this stereotype in their ads as well. So it's we certainly laugh about it too. I think if you look at it from a cultural perspective as to why that could be a thing, is certainly Germans have a tendency to being prepared. Germans like to know what's happening, have a plan A, maybe a plan B, and a plan C if something goes wrong. So yes, you have to be prepared. So if you want to lie by the pool, you got to have a seat, and you've got to make sure that you get one. So I think that it comes from that, and it's certainly a German characteristic, to be prepared. Wearing, like outdoor clothes, and you can see it in the way they dress sometimes as well. It's just you be prepared for every eventuality. So yes, if you work with Germans, you make sure they feel like you are prepared too. That's certainly a very important thing.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is, although obviously the sun loungers is a stereotype and it's a source of humor even among German people nowadays, there are certain kind of cultural traits about the Germans that it's a good idea to bear in mind when you're working with them. So one of these is being prepared.
Not everybody is the same, and Germans are there 85 million, so they're not all the same. There are tendencies and trends, and that certainly is one of them. Another thing might be Germans are very direct generally, and that might come across as being rude to some people, but again, that's the way Germans communicate generally, is very direct, very clear, and very honest, because honesty is quite important. So sometimes if you ask an opinion, you will get the answer, the true answer. I think somebody said the English are too polite to be honest, and the Germans are too honest to be polite. So there's that, and that can come across as something, they're a bit too direct, they're a bit too forward. But again, that's just a cultural trait, and we value the honesty quite a lot. So
these are really helpful things to know, and I mean, I guess that is really going to be useful because it comes across in the language, isn't it? Just the language you use to speak to people. Yes. It's language and culture are kind of bound together, isn't it? And having that cultural awareness is hugely important, as well as being able to speak the language.
Yeah, whenever you learn a language, you learn about a culture as well, because otherwise you don't really understand it. So
yeah. Are there any other cultural traits that you think are worth speaking about?
Well, another important one would be punctuality. So I've spoken about this before. So yeah, being punctual is very important, and it's a virtue. You don't let people wait for you, because that would be very rude. So if you are a tour guide, for example, just make sure you're on time, rather than on time, actually be a bit early, maybe 5-10 minutes early, and give time to be ready and depart at whatever time the meeting is. So that's very important, and will certainly play in your favor if you can adhere to that. And also, if you are late or anything, admit your mistakes. Say, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late. Let them know. That's what I said before about the honesty. It's better to say, sorry, I've taken a wrong turn, or I forgot something. Say it rather than say nothing about it. That is important.
Yeah, I guess from the perspective of the tour guide as well, that punctuality, if your guests are punctual, that maybe makes your job a little bit easier as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Also professional like latecomers and people holding up their groups. So that could work pretty well.
I mean, you have a schedule too, of course, and you have to stick to your schedule too. So yeah, it's important, and it's certainly a sign of respect. So with Germans, you generally want to be properly on time.
And while we're on the subject of that kind of whole cultural language thing and the way the two things kind of intersect and interact with each other, maybe you could answer a question I have about, with English, everybody is you. And in
Yeah.
German, you've got the Sie, which is the formal way, or the Du, which is the more familiar. I mean, what would be your way of approaching that with people you work with? If you're say you're doing a private tour and you're working
Yeah.
with German people, should you use Sie, or should you opt for a more friendly approach?
It kind of depends maybe on your own personality as well, and what kind of relationship you want to have with the clients. But generally, I'd say to start with Z is the safer route. The see and do, it's changing nowadays, and there's a lot. Do is used a lot more now than it was before. But if, for example, the people you talk to are older than you, then you should generally say Sie. That is, I would still say so. Now, it also depends if you want them to address you by your first name. You can ask them their name, and whatever they say, you can say it back. But start with the Sie, and then you can ask, or if it's generally the older person, that used to be the rule. The older person has to offer to do, and they often do in the end. They just say, "Why don't we just switch?" So
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So just wait for them to lead you, basically.
yeah. It's be on the
Okay.
safe side.
Okay, always good. Okay, amazing. Lots of amazing insights so far, and we're only really just beginning. Do remember to say hello and ask any questions, or leave any comments you have. We'd love to hear from any of the viewers watching. Okay, Daniela, I'm going to go on to another question now. Now, often there is this perception that German's a very difficult language. People can be very put off by, for example, all of the cases. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but now how with des, die, I'm not even going to try. But there's lots of words for the, aren't there? How many?
Yes. There's cases, and then we have three different articles, three different genders for words as well. So yes, there's a lot. So there's a lot of words for that. It's a very logical language, but you need to put some work into understanding the rules of the language. However, if you are a language learner and you get some things wrong, it's not the end of the world either. So a lot of people and a lot of students, they get very hung up on the fact that they didn't use the right case, or they didn't use the right gender for the word. It doesn't really matter so much if you can make yourself understood. And I'm sure no German client will be offended if you say das Tisch instead of der Tisch or something like that. It's not that bad, and that's what I try and encourage people to do. Just speak, and just continue speaking, and try and make yourself understood, and you will get better over time. But people are very understanding if you learn a language, especially there's not that many German learners, so people might be quite impressed that you are giving it a go, and so I would not stress about it so much, and just go for it anyway.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think people, the kind of, I don't know, people are kind of quite touched almost if you've made the effort to learn
Yeah,
their language, and
yeah.
that feeling of being touched and happy is going to completely outweigh any little, oh, they didn't use the right word for the, as
Yeah,
long as they can
nobody cares.
understand you.
And if you think about it from your own perspective, if somebody spoke your language as a foreign language to you, you wouldn't care that much either. So
No, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, really, as well, when we're talking about this, people might think, oh, learn German. That means I need to be able to talk, really fluently about all of the historic buildings in my town. And okay, that's an excellent goal to aim towards, perhaps. But even just learning a few phrases or simple
yeah,
conversational gambits in German could be
yeah.
a really good start, isn't it?
You can learning a language takes a long time. And so if you start learning a language, you will not be able to give your tours in German within 6
Yeah.
months. It's not going to be possible. But you can start learning little things, as you say, little conversational pieces. And you can also, another tip I give people who don't have a very strong level yet is, if they give their tours, say, in English, and there are specific words that are not very common amongst English learners, because you've got to bear in mind the German clients have learned English as well. So they're not they're not going to know all the words that you might be using. And if you can start by looking those words up and knowing what they are in German, you can make them understand your tour in English much better already. Because I don't know, I'm thinking of architectural styles or things like that, and you just learn that little piece in German, and so if they don't know what you're saying in English, you can give them that word, and that's much easier than having to construct whole sentences. And so that's
Yeah,
a little special tip.
That's such a lovely tip, and I mean that's really useful as well,
Yeah.
because as you say, you know, there could be so many. If say even if you're quite a proficient English speaker, for example, there can be lots of specialist terms that you just maybe haven't
I'm here
understand.
in I live in Normandy, and so we have the D-Day beaches, and that is the main attraction here. Now, if people speak about military strategy and things like that in a foreign language, that's really difficult to understand. And I didn't understand this at first when I came here, and so it's very useful if you have learned these little words in German, and then you know you can help them a little bit, and then it shows you care, even though you might not be able to speak perfectly yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot there from looking at your posts on LinkedIn, I gather that a lot of the work you do with your students focuses on storytelling and
Yes.
conversational skills.
Yes.
Can you maybe tell us just a little bit more about how that works?
Well, I focus on conversations on spoken German because as tour guides and tourism professionals, we speak to people. We don't write essays, so that's not really very important. And if as a guide you want to engage your audience, you need to be able to speak and tell stories that grip them, that make them interested. So that's why I focus on that, and I generally try to have part of the lesson could be about one of your visits, and you work specifically on what you're going to say and the stories you're going to tell, what could be an interesting story to tell, and also put that maybe in a cultural context. It might be interesting as well to see how maybe you find a German reference to what you're saying. And the other parts of the lessons would be just regular conversation. Just tell me about your weekend, tell me about what you've done recently. Because when you give a tour and you might be spending the whole day with a group of people, you have to speak to them on very normal subjects, and so it's very important to be confident in that as well. And you never know what's coming up in these kinds of lessons as well. I don't always know what we're going to end up talking about, but that's how it is to give a tour. So that's why I focus on that, because that's the most important part of being a guide, is to bring things to life and to speak to people and have conversations.
Yeah, and I think the fact that people can work with you to practice talking about the sites they're
Yeah,
specifically guiding around is really, really useful, because they can get, obviously you have to be prepared for the unexpected, and you don't want to
yeah,
sound as if you're reading off a script.
yeah.
But having the general ideas and the structures and the hooks and stuff
Yeah,
like that to get people listening.
it's sort of two things. It's the tour itself that you need to, and you can learn the things by heart. You can learn your presentation almost by heart, and then there's the other part, which is the in between conversations that just happen. So I'm trying to cover both.
And you mentioned as well, you mentioned the importance of learning German so you could interact with children too. You
Yes.
talked a little bit about that at the beginning. So, I mean, I suppose that might be part of it as well, possibly thinking about how you can maybe simplify some stories to make them
Yeah.
more child friendly. Is that maybe
Yes.
something you do?
Yes. Simplify them is a good. I mean, it's a good idea anyway. Whenever you learn a language, to use simple language. Don't make it too complicated for anyone. But yes, I see lots of great offers here for children in our region, treasure hunts in castles and things like that. And that sounds all very fun, but they're not. They're aimed at French children, maybe English speaking children, but there's a lot of German families here, and wouldn't it be nice if the children could participate in that? And that is not really hard to do if you have a prepared visit and you just give some of the information in German. It's not that much work for you to adjust to the families like that.
And can you tell us, it's always really interesting to hear a little bit about the journeys that people have made to get to the work they're doing today. So can you tell us a little bit about the story behind Let's Go Blabla? Why did you decide to found it? And
Yeah.
why did you specifically decide to niche on the tourism industry?
So I came to Normandy about 13, 14 years ago.
Mhm.
And when I was first looking for a job here, I ended up teaching German, and the next job I had was hotel reception. So and ever since I've lived here, these are the two the jobs that I had. I was either teaching German, and parallel I would work in tourism. I did animation as well, which, campsites and kids clubs and things like that. And my husband's also a tour guide, so that's also I'm in this world every day. And so that's what I've done all the time. But the teaching I've done before was in schools, and I was teaching engineers and other people. And I always thought to myself, when I was working in tourism, I was always the only one who spoke German in wherever I was working. And I thought, wouldn't it be useful if the others would speak it too? And so in the end, I started to work for myself with Let's Go Blabla in 2020 during COVID. And I just thought, that's the sort of, it's the time now for people to start learning a new language. So I decided to focus on German, on tourism professionals, because I could see while I was working in tourism that it is something people would love to speak German, but they just a lot of them have never learned it. I spoke to a tour guide recently, and she said, I was trying to find a job for the summer, and a lot of the offers actually required German, and I don't speak it, and that's a shame. So I thought, there's not that many offers out there. There's very basic German courses out there, but there's not really that relevant to tourism professionals. You have very specific tasks you need to be able to do, giving tours, or you have visitors reception things, and there's not a lot of courses out there. So that's how
Yes, you can do yourself. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, that's all right.
I was just going to say, so you could really be doing yourself a huge favor. I mean, the title of this broadcast is Learn German, Open Doors. It sounds as if you really could be opening loads of doors, even just by learning a little bit of German, or, making the decision to start learning German using some basic phrases and language to begin with, and then carrying on learning German and building up. Because, if not many people around you can offer tourism services in German, you're really going to be putting yourself head and shoulders
off the
above
top of
everyone
my
else.
head, I don't know of a lot of guides here that do speak German. Some of them, and a lot of them, would be Germans themselves, but not a lot of the French guides here would be doing that, and I think they're missing out.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said earlier, Germans are increasingly spending money when they travel as well. So presumably would pay quite well for the privilege of having somebody give them a bespoke tour within their own language. So definitely plenty of money to be made there, and plenty of opportunities as well. Okay. Let's see. Yes, I think really a few more questions, but I think an important question is, what would you say to someone who was hesitant about learning German? A tour professional who was hesitant about learning German, maybe thought they should learn a language, but wasn't sure which one. How would you persuade them?
How would I persuade them? Okay. I would think it goes along with what I've said already. It's certainly a very useful language, because there are many clients to be had if you speak German. It is certainly not the easiest language to learn. Depends, because if you speak English already, it might be easier for you than if you come from another language background. But it is also a very logical language. It's a very clear language. So once you get past that initial stress, you can improve quite well. And yes, it can open doors for you, as we said. It's certainly very useful, and it opens and I forgot to say that earlier. It doesn't just open to you the 85 million Germans. You don't forget there's other countries as well that speak German. There's
Mhm.
Austria. There's, I think, about 100 million Europeans have German as their first language. So it's really it's such a useful language to have. Even if you stop working in tourism, it's a useful language in other uh, jobs as well. It's really it helps a lot of people to find jobs.
Absolutely, it's totally transferable. And learning a language is never a waste of time anyway.
No,
Um,
absolutely no. As you said,
and
nobody has ever regretted it, I would think. And
no,
it's a
no.
language you can use. I can understand that maybe if it's a very niche language, some people might think it's not worth the time, but it's certainly a language you can use.
Absolutely. Um, and yeah, my next question is obviously you work with tour professionals in and around Normandy, where you're based, but can people also work with you online?
Yes, that's mostly what I'm doing is
Mhm.
online classes. So wherever you are, you can take classes with me. And I'm very interested in having other perspectives, because I have my own European perspective, but especially as tour guides in general, we all have an interest in other cultures. So I think it would be actually really great to have anybody join in, because it's very enriching. So
Mhm.
anybody, and yeah, it's mostly my lessons are online. There's a few courses I give here in Normandy, but generally it's all online.
And do you tend to work with one-to-one, or do you sometimes offer classes?
I do both. There's group lessons and one-to-one. One-to-one is more common because of time constraints of certain people, but because that's one of the things about tourism professionals as well. It's um, you don't have a fixed schedule. Generally, you work weekends, you work a lot in the summer, you don't work in the winter. So I try to adapt to that as well, and offer intensive courses maybe in the winter time to prepare the season, and then you take something less intense during the summer. So I try to keep it flexible if I can, to adjust to people's schedules as well,
Hmm.
as I
And I
know
suppose
tourism
the
schedules are terrible.
yeah, very full on. And I suppose the advantage of the one-to-one as well is that you really can focus on the specific,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yes,
language
exactly.
that the tourist
It
professionals are
it
working
could
with.
be interesting if I've had groups of people who work in the same company, in the same hotel, or so that is very interesting too, because group lessons do have their advantages, because you get to speak to other people, not just me. There's a lot more input, so that could certainly be very useful too. But yes, one-on-one is the most personalized option, absolutely, and we can work specifically on your tours and what you really need. And we talk about your experiences as well. I always like to hear what happened on a tour, and learn from that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fascinating speaking to tour professionals, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. There's always so many stories.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of the broadcast now. So thanks very much to everybody for watching. If you're interested in finding out more about Daniela and her work, she's very active on Instagram and LinkedIn, and always really enjoy reading your posts, Daniela, because they're always get a little nugget of wisdom about the German culture and the language. So Daniela quite often focuses on words, specific
Yes.
words. I think most recently, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Pünktlichkeit. Is that
Pünktlichkeit,
correct?
yes. The punctuality,
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah, so Daniela did a post about the word punctuality in German, and then like just a little bit more insight into what this means for German people. So she's really worth following if you don't already. So yeah, any final words, Daniela?
Well, to anybody who's hesitating to learn German, just give it a try, and it's probably not as difficult as you think it is. And it is actually a lot of fun too.
Well, you've certainly inspired me to dust off my German, which is
Well,
very rusty.
I'm glad. I'm glad. It's always good to refresh some old knowledge. So absolutely. Very good.
Thank you so much, Daniela, and thank you very much, everybody, and see you next time on Tour
Thank
Pro
you.
Talks.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.